These are the 5 principles of hybrid training that will keep you consistent across the entire year. For blokes that want to get into shape, the default that you will go to is bodybuilding to get massive, and I think that we've seen a massive shift away from that with high rocks and the boom in running, and just not thinking that being massive is the be all and end all. And I think that the standards of beauty for men are essentially shifting away from getting as big as possible to being as fit and healthy as possible. And I think that you can do that without becoming this self-obsessed Stephen Bartlett crying because you had a glass of wine type, because being fit and training, to me anyway, is about actually pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and doing things that have a net positive effect into your life. And training is absolutely the lowest hanging fruit that you can pick. Having more energy and just feeling more healthy in general is so massively overlooked. Like, what good is being a big old fucking unit if you can't run up a flight of stairs? I'm never going to be a bodybuilder or be massive because I don't think that I've got the drive to do that. It's not there. That's why I felt like I could be consistent for a holiday or for an event, but long term across an entire year, my adherence was never there. And since switching to hybrid training and functional fitness in general, the consistency is there because the challenge is there. And that replaced what I was missing from the happiest sporting time of my life, which was when I played football when I was younger. Like, we moved away from wanting to be as big as possible because that isn't a priority. When we stopped sport, we were looking for a home and a community where we could put that effort and energy, and bodybuilding and training just to get bigger never provided that. But hybrid training does, because it brings the best of both worlds, so that the challenge and the constantly shifting nature of our own human attention is there because we're putting energy into 2 different things. Here we go. The first principle is constant challenge. Hybrid training is everything that you want it to be. Challenge is what creates that change within you. If you're not being pushed outside your comfort zone, then you will stay exactly where you are until the end of time. And I spent a lot of time without being pushed outside it. I was really comfortable in the sense that I could get home from work, I could do absolutely nothing, I could sit in bed, I can doom scroll, I can eat whatever I wanted, end up gaining weight at an unbelievable rate, and feeling depressed, feeling like shit and not doing anything about it, because honestly, deep down inside of me, I didn't want to. I didn't want to be challenged. I didn't want to admit that I had a problem, that I was binge eating, that my head was up the wall and I needed to sort my head out. And when I grew up, like, with playing football, like, that was what the challenge was. Because think about it, like, when you played sport when you was younger, that was the thing that you did. It was constantly evolving. It was constantly becoming harder because you were, playing different teams each week. You was doing different things. And when that stopped, that level of challenge just disappeared completely, because I was never bought into bodybuilding. I didn't want to become a bodybuilder, but that's what I thought, that's the only real style of training that you can do. I never really enjoyed running when I played football, so I thought, well, I'm obviously not going to do that because I didn't enjoy it when I was playing, so why would I enjoy it when I'm just doing that and it's not the thing that that ties into the sport that I was doing. Like running and doing weight training, so like the very, very basic hybrid training, as it were, strength and endurance, doing them both at the same time, it means that there's always a very specific goal that's being pushed, and that very specific goal that you're working towards over X amount of weeks creates that constant challenge. If you're choosing a goal that you know deep down is quite hard to get, that's going to genuinely force you think, shit, I need to train it, otherwise I'm going to let myself down. It switches away that sort of feeling from training just for like focusing on your physique, just focusing on the way that you look, to fueling your body, to like thinking about how your body actually performs rather than purely thinking about the way that it looks. It's pretty fucking powerful, because you'd no longer think that day to day, has my body weight come down, have I got bigger biceps, is my chest looking better, because that becomes a byproduct of the training that we're specifically doing. That constant challenge is what has kept me more motivated, kept me training more consistently than bodybuilding ever could have done. The second principle for me is intrinsic and extrinsic competitiveness, which is a fancy way to say it, and just being competitive again. Like, I think that we spend so much time scared to push ourselves and say that we do want to be competitive. I do think it sort of gets bred out of you. And I think it's massively important for blokes to have somewhere to put that competitiveness. And I think running really tends to bring that out. When you start to notice from an internal point of view that your times are improving, you're becoming a little bit fitter, your heart rate's coming down and your paces are improving, it feels really motivating and really rewarding, because you can see the actual changes. I found that when I was trying to be a bodybuilder, I'm using that with very quotation marks in a very loose way, I'd never saw direct improvement from sort of week to week or session to session, really. Maybe my weights were going up, maybe like, oh yeah, your chest is a little bit bigger, you've added 2.5 kilos onto your bench press, which, don't get me wrong, sound, that is still something that I do, but I really struggled with that because it wasn't motivating for me inside, so I wasn't really bought into it. So that meant that if something were to happen in my life, that was the first thing to go. If I was a bit busy when I got a new job, if I was doing something else, it was always the first thing to go. If I was stressed, I just sort of fuck it off. I didn't really use it as that sort of that place to put that competitive sort of like that competitive streak, that competitive part of my personality that I love to train. It didn't really correspond that well with bodybuilding, and that was one of the reasons why, like, I found that I felt like I could be really consistent with it when I had a specific goal for it. So from a bodybuilding point of view, so purely focusing on physique-based training, we'll say that is what it is from now. If I had a holiday, I found that really easy to be consistent. I found it really easy to tick the boxes because I had an end date that I was aiming for. But if we zoomed out and looked at that across an entire year, I really struggled with that. I really struggled with doing the same thing over and over and over and not really feel like I was getting anywhere over the space of a year. But for a micro amount of time, for 12 weeks at a time, could I lock in a 12-week cut for a B for? 100% I could. And hybrid training, like, it brings back that competitiveness by setting big, probably unachievable goals, or that feel unachievable, and seeing that work start to compound week after week after week. Because, like I said, when you see your heart rate come down on a run that felt easy, that maybe 3 weeks ago felt like it was quite hard, that is motivating. And when you do that, there's nothing stopping you from pushing yourself. And another really weird thing that was like that corresponded to me, training to complete failure from a bodybuilding, from a strength training point of view, from a physique point of view. For some reason, I didn't have that switch. From a running point of view. I could put it in the fucking wall. Like, I can redline it, zone 5 it, and absolutely kill myself on a run. But from a bench press, from a a lat pull down, there was always a little bit of me that left a little bit in the tank, and I'm not quite sure why that was. But I think that's why I found that mixing the two of them allows me to redline it, allows me to really push myself from a cardiovascular point of view that for some reason bodybuilding just never gave me. The third principle is that it helps you find a community. Like, I found that after I stopped football, I felt lost. I felt like I didn't really know what I was doing. There was no through line to my training. There was no structure. There was no nothing. I was just sort of like aimlessly wandering around like a lost little puppy, thinking, please, somebody take me in. Somebody tell me what I've got to do. And like, I found that like bodybuilding for a specific date, yeah, I'm going to a B for in 12 weeks. Therefore, I need to lose a bit of body fat. I need to work on my chest. I need to do bicep curls for when I'm in Pasha. But I didn't want to be on stage. Like, I didn't want to be a bodybuilder. So I never felt that connection with it. I never felt really motivated by it. And I was looking for like a home, somewhere that I can feel a part of it, somewhere where I understand like the culture surrounding it, where I understand like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing and I know why I'm doing it, and I know that other people are doing it, and those other people are like me. Those other people don't want to be bodybuilders. They don't want to be competitively massive on stage with like massive fucking biceps. But they are the same as me. They might have come from a background of sport. Oh shit, that was me. They might want to run. I enjoy running. I want to lift as well because I don't want to look like a skinny little weasel. And finding that community, finding that other people who were just like me, who were bought into the same things that I want to do, that I want to achieve, who want to do things that push themselves outside of the comfort zone. You can see where I'm going with this. Like, I think for me, like, hybrid training, the ultimate goal is to push yourself both physically and mentally, and how that actually corresponds with the rest of your life. I know it sounds cringe, and I know it's cliche, and I know it's like what everyone says, but if you can wake up in the morning and you can run a 10k, what's the rest of your day to compare to that? Like, if you do a really hard session in the morning, the rest of your day just feels so much easier. I feel like you've got like this almost like invisible force field around you for like just putting up with bullshit and just people winding you up. You just like it just stops. It makes me personally, I feel so much calmer, so much more when I'm in a routine with my training and everything's moving in a nice direction. I feel a lot calmer. I have a sense of like control over my own life, which unfortunately not a lot of us get. Not a lot of us get to have that feeling of control, which is massively, massively important. But being in a community of people who look like me, who do the same things as me, who have the same interests as me, it's massively, massively important, because I feel like there's so many people that are lost, that slip through the cracks of, I played a lot of sport, I was really active when I was younger. This, in the gym, bodybuilding, trying to get as big as possible, isn't really for me. What do I do? Well, this is exactly what you do. You get yourself into hybrid training. The fourth pillar is the balance between the two disciplines, between strength and endurance. I could not just run on my own, and I could not just weightlift on my own. Doing the two of them helps me stop that level of boredom that tends to set in with me. Whether that's something wrong with my brain, that's up for debate. But does this mean that I will never become a truly world-class runner, or I truly achieve a truly world-class physique? No, because ultimately it's not optimal. It's not optimal for running, and it's not optimal for developing your physique. But something that I think is vastly, vastly underrated is just doing something because you fucking enjoy it. Like, what happens to just doing things because it makes you happy? Like, we've got so far down the rabbit hole of trying to be optimal and trying to make sure that absolutely everything's tracked, everything's measured. Don't get me wrong, I love data. I love tracking things, but it's not the be all and end all, like becoming like Stephen Bartlett and crying because you had a glass of wine and saying it wiped out 3 days of your life or whatever because you could podcast poorly. Like, yeah, sound. But at what cost is that? Like, I'm absolutely fine with being the healthiest and the happiest version of myself, because in the past, like, I've been a person who suffers from binge eating. I've been a person who suffers from over restriction and feeling shit about myself and feeling depressed and feeling low and getting in from work and just sitting in my bed and doing nothing and being miserable to be around, blaming other people, being a bit of a victim. And training consistently allows my brain to feel normal, because my brain is not normal. And through training, through running, through lifting, through doing different things and scratching that little itch in the back of my mind that says, go and do something a bit different, it helps me to be me and it helps me to be happy. And I think that's something that should be celebrated, like training and doing something because you enjoy it. Like, why are you trying to force it? If you're not into, right, I'm gonna run through a scenario here with you and let me see if you agree with this. If you got back from a holiday, right, we'll say September time, we get back from an holiday and you think, I need to get in the gym, me. I felt a bit shit on that holiday. I felt a bit low. I felt a little bit embarrassed in myself. I didn't really my top was off, but I didn't feel confident in myself. Right, what did I used to do when I was 18? Push, pull legs, 6 days a week in the gym. Could I do that? Yeah, I probably could, to be fair, but obviously I've got the kids, I've got this, I've got that. Right, all right, we'll do that. Week 1 comes around. Push, pull legs, done. All right, lots of DOMs. Second week, something happens, you miss a session. That missed session turns into you beating yourself up, feeling bad about it. You know deep down that doing this style of training bores you to fucking tears. So you think, do you know what? I'll miss this session now, it's fine. That missed session leads to restarting on Monday. Restarting on Monday leads to, actually, shit, I'm more pissed off with myself that I've done that. But let's put a little bit more pressure on myself. Let's over-restrict a little bit more to make up for lost time because I missed that out, because that's what I need to do. And then you keep on going round and round and round, and it all comes down to the fact that you're probably not bought into the style of training that you're doing because you want to try something a little bit different. The goal is no longer to have as big a chest as possible, to look vaguely different in 6 months' time. The goal deep down of what you actually want to achieve is, I want to be fitter, I want to be happier, I want to be healthier, and I want to be pushing myself outside my comfort zone. And ultimately, I don't think that bodybuilding style training is going to be the vehicle that you used to get there. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to say, do you know what? Like, I want to run and I want to lift. Like, I want to be fitter, I want to be faster, and I want to be stronger, and I want to do all these things at the same time because it makes me happy. That bit at the end there, when I say because it makes me happy, is massively, massively, massively underrated. And I think probably one of the most important pillars for me of what hybrid training actually brings. The fifth and final pillar, fueling for performance and not just restriction. Bodybuilding and losing body fat, the way that I sort of think about it is trying to eat the least amount of food possible with your physique purely being the focus. Whereas I think hybrid training is trying to eat the max amount of food possible to fuel your performance while facilitating your body composition goals. So what I mean is trying to eat as much fuel as possible to make sure your training sessions go absolutely perfectly. We've got all the energy in the world. We know exactly what we're eating beforehand in the run up to it because we want that session to go well. We want to do this at the same time as trying to put your body fat into a sort of like into a position, what aligns with what you want. If you want to be leaner, that's absolutely fine. I'm not saying that because you're doing hybrid training, you're going to go onto maintenance calories, you're going to sit exactly where you are right now and that's the end of it, because that's not what it is. But the beauty of it, what I think personally, when we're doing this added endurance work, this added running, this added conditioning sessions, what that serves to do is that's going to raise the amount of energy that we're burning across the week, which means that therefore we can probably get away with eating a little bit more food. We can get away with eating a little bit more food, which means that our training sessions are going to go better because we're fueling to perform. We're making sure that we're doing every single thing to make those go better, which means, guess what? When we start to see the improvements, your heart rate starts to drop when we go for a run. Your heart rate variability is increasing. Your body composition is starting to come down a little bit in line with if you want to be a bit leaner. Your strength is going up. When you do that, have a guess what's happening. Those adaptations are happening within the body. You're seeing that. You're noticing that. You'll become motivated by that. You become motivated because you can see the effect. You can see the effect it's having not only physically, but mentally upstairs. You're slowly ticking these boxes day by day, week by week, one thing by one thing, just literally focusing on that. And when you do that, you get your training into a good place. Your nutrition will follow from that. I think we spend so much time, or we put so much effort into trying to change everything all at once overnight, and I just don't think it works. I don't think it's sustainable. I think that we can make little improvements that compound over time rather than trying to overhaul everything overnight. My biggest thing that I will say to you, pick one thing. Pick one thing from training, one thing from nutrition, one thing from lifestyle. From a training point of view, it could be just to tick your sessions off and be consistent. From a nutrition point of view, pick a calorie and a protein target. Don't get worried too much about carbs and fats. Pick protein and pick a calorie target and stick to it as best as you can. But don't beat yourself up. Just look at the habits, look at what actually happened in the lead up to it. We're not in this to be perfect. We're in this to understand the way that we work. When we understand the way that your brain is and the way that your body operates and things that happen in your life and how you correspond with that stress, is it overeating because you've had a bad day at work? All right, okay. Why is it that you do that? Why do you think that that's something that you tend to go towards? And when we do that, we look at everything else that happens as a byproduct of that. From a lifestyle point of view, could it be to reduce your screen time down because you're spending too much time on your phone on the weekend? And could it be, right, okay, can we improve our sleep? Can we make sure we've got a very set bedtime and a very set wake up time? Doing things like that and changing one thing at a time is the single best thing that we can do, because when we do that, we improve our performance. And when the performance increases, our buy-in and our enjoyment increases, which then leads to everything else happening as a byproduct of that and not the other way around. Now, that shift from trying to be as big as possible to try and be as fit as possible is something that has worked really well for me, because ultimately that's what I've always wanted. And I never quite knew how to put it into words as to what it is that I actually wanted to achieve. And sometimes I do think that maybe I'm making this to be out something more than it's not. But in other times I think, no, I need to shout from the rooftops about the positive effect that this has had on me and my entire life. If I only ever knew what bodybuilding was, if I only ever knew what that style of training was, I would never be sat here doing this video now. I would never be sat here with the business that I've got, helping the lads that I help all around the world. And it's from trying a different style of training, doing something that's outside of the norm of what you get taught. It's the single best thing that I promise you will ever do. So if you play football when you're younger, you fell off, you know you want to get back in the gym, you want to get training consistently, this is what you need to do. Let me know. I hope it helps.